Lina grew up in a family of doctors, and not just any doctors, dentists, who, as everyone knows, are always in demand. Her parents, having fully experienced the work and, importantly, the salary at a city dental clinic, decided that enough was enough. They took out a loan and opened their own practice. At first, they worked just the two of them, dentists, nurses, and cleaners, all by themselves. But from the very first appointment, the focus was on respectful treatment of patients, professionalism, and reasonable prices. These three pillars made their practice popular and profitable. Soon, there were several such practices, fully staffed and equipped with the latest technology. Thus, financial worries disappeared from the family's agenda. By the time Lina was born, the family was more than well off. They could afford international trips, vacations anywhere in the world, clothes and shoes from Italy or France. At first, they had 2 cars, one for mom and one for dad. Then, when Lina received her diploma, she got her own car. "This is in addition to your diploma," Dad said. Mom added that all Lina needed were honestly earned driver's rights. Well, Lina handled that. She could have had her own car earlier while she was still studying, but there was a disagreement that was peacefully resolved in her family. Her parents were convinced that their daughter would also choose medicine, specifically dentistry, but Lina simply said she couldn't stand the smell, and the quiet but insidious buzzing of the drill was enough for her after one time when she had to get a tooth treated. Since then, Lina never forgot to take care of her teeth, doing everything to avoid ending up in the dentist's chair. So it's no surprise that Lina didn't want to follow in her parents' footsteps, and she told them so. The response was a long silence. Lina guessed that she had upset her parents, but she knew them well, they wouldn't pressure her. At most, they'd offer a couple of arguments in defense of dentistry in general, and their work in particular, but they'd listen to her counter-arguments too. In the end, they'd say that Lina has the right to choose who she wants to be. For a while, there would be a slight tension in the house, but it would end with sincere wishes for Lina to get into wherever she wanted. Lina got in easily and simply. She did very well in school, could have been excellent, but she couldn't stand chemistry and biology, and they showed up in her certificate as good grades, not excellent. Lina graduated from the law faculty of the best university in the country and returned to her hometown with an excellent diploma. She worked at a large and well-known law firm. She found it herself, though maybe her last name helped a little. The owner of this law firm had recently been a patient of her dad's, and a grateful one at that. When he saw Lina's diploma, he noted that they were from the same alma mater. After talking with her, he immediately said he was ready to hire Lina on staff. It took her a year to gain not only experience, but also a name. Lina was glad she hadn't made a mistake in her choice of profession, and her parents appreciated that. Genuinely rejoiced for her. But there was something that worried and upset them. Lina was soon turning 25, and she had never once mentioned wanting to get married. Her parents remembered themselves at 25. They had not only found each other, but also gotten married. True, they said nothing to Lina. Their tact, delicacy, and respect for their daughter showed. Sometime later, Lina herself told them that she had broken off relations with the person she wanted to start a family with. By then, Lina was already living separately from her parents in an apartment they had bought for her. Lina understood that cars and apartments were expensive gifts. She understood that mom and dad spared nothing for her. But Lina felt she had to do something herself, especially since her salary was far from small. So she insisted on paying for the apartment herself. It was in this apartment that she lived, without telling her parents, with one young man. He was also from a wealthy family. He got his education in Germany. When he returned, he started working at his uncle's firm. People said they made a very organic pair. It probably looked that way from the outside, and everything was good between them, but not for long. Lina simply didn't know who he really was. Then she saw his cynicism, brazenness, megalomania, and rudeness if you disagreed with him. One day, she heard him call her my couture purse, and it wasn't funny to her. There was so much negligence in his voice. When they were alone, Lina asked why she was a purse, and he explained, opening her eyes to her place.
He believed she shouldn't stand out, should obey him in everything if she wanted not only to defend divorcees in court or reinstate unfairly dismissed workers, which is what she did at work, but to be with him. That was the first time in her life Lina said, "Get out of here." He snorted, said a very strong word, quickly packed his sports bag, and left. The last time Lina cried like that was in 5th grade, when their dog, the kindest poodle Mancy, was hit by a car. They didn't make it to the vet clinic in time. That's when Lina sobbed for several days, and now she was sobbing again. And it was her own fault. She saw and guessed who was next to her. What was she hoping for? Lina went to her parents, told them everything, blamed herself, and didn't even mention him by name. They sat together on the couch, Lina and Mom and Dad. They just hugged her and said nothing. Lina felt offended and foolish, but she also felt protected. Her parents were there. They were always there, even from a distance. Lina realized how much her work meant to her. She had to deal with 2 lawsuits in court, defending a person whose innocence Lina was sure of, and a divorce case that the one she was no longer with had mocked. Her client was a saleswoman at a vegetable store, humiliated and beaten by her boorish husband, but pulling through for her 2 children with her last strength. Lina would ensure that it wasn't her who got thrown out, but the arrogant hubby along with his kids from the apartment she had bought herself, and that he wouldn't stick his nose in there again and would pay alimony. After one court proceeding where Lina proved that her client was not at fault in the accident, she met Dima.
He came to the trial to support his friend, whom they were trying to accuse. Dima waited until Lina came out and approached her. He thanked her so sincerely, looked at her with such undisguised admiration, that Lina immediately believed him. He was truly glad. Dima helped her forget about the one who had been in her life, who considered her a purse and wanted her to be just an appendage to him. Dima was different. If she had to describe him in 2 words, Lina would say intelligence and kindness. Dima immediately said he wasn't rich, that he lived with his mom who had recently been given a disability group, and with 2 sisters who were still schoolgirls, high schoolers. He was an unfinished programmer. There were no opportunities to study. He had to help the family. Would Lina understand? If she didn't want to continue the relationship, as they say, they weren't a match. He would only love Lina but wouldn't bother her. This confession was hard for Dima, but Lina already knew how much she needed exactly Dima and didn't tire of telling him so. Lina introduced Dima to her parents. He didn't hide that he was afraid of this meeting. "Who am I, and who are your parents? They'll be against it, and I understand them." Lina had to literally drag Dima by the hand to her parents' house and then drag him back the same way. The evening and dinner went so warmly and well, and then there was a chess game that her dad suggested to Dima, where their strengths turned out to be equal, but both wanted clarity on who would win. In short, her parents accepted Dima, and they told Lina so later. Lina insisted that Dima move in with her. She was a bit afraid that everyday life might spoil their relationship. It didn't, on the contrary. Dima treated Lina in daily life in a way that made her feel as if he was protecting her from all the little things, like Mom and Dad did in childhood. Her parents guessed this and reciprocated Dima with the same good attitude. Then, during another chess game, her dad asked Dima, "Are you planning to get married?" Lina and Mom heard this, though Dad's words were impromptu. He hadn't expected to ask such a question himself. Dima replied, "Once I get on my feet, then we'll get married. Right now, my salary is only enough for food, but also for utilities." "You know, Dima," Mom interjected, "when we got married, we didn't always have enough either, so that's not an argument." They got married. Lina knew how much Dima was worrying. He wanted her to be a bride in a beautiful white dress with a veil, for the whole wedding to be memorable, but Dima had no money. He had already taken on extra work. For 2 months, he gave less money to his mom and sisters. Not knowing that Dima was getting married, they didn't even want to take that money. Still, Dima could only buy the dress. Lina saw how awkward Dima felt that her parents paid for the wedding. Then Dad said, "Dmitri, this is not up for discussion. It's our daughter getting married, not yours, ours, and we love her no less than you do. We believe that, Mom and I. So, dear Dima, let's close the topic." How he wanted his work to bring in a normal income. Lina always thought, where did this purely masculine trait come from him?
He grew up without a father, surrounded by women, mom and 2 sisters, but he behaved like a real man. And what wonderful mom.
And sisters he had. Lina also wished she had sisters. She had already conspired with them, giving them money on the sly. At first, they refused, but Lina managed to persuade them, but only if not a word to Dima. And dresses and shoes, Lina bought them openly for the girls, saying it was for a holiday or birthday, and that she had the right to congratulate them. Dima, of course, understood everything, but Lina did it so carefully, with respect, without condescension, and the sisters were so happy that Dima had to back off. It didn't work only with Dima's mom. She sat Lina down next to her and said, "Daughter, don't buy me anything. You're already doing so much for us. I'm so happy for Dima. Just know and believe that he loves you very much and treasures you." Lina started working even more, taking on everything, but he saw that he was far from Lina's salary. Lina saw how awkward he felt, how he worried. She didn't tire of repeating to him that it was normal, temporary. They shouldn't elevate who earns how much to a principle. A family, if it's really a family, isn't held together by money. Lina was happy with Dima. She truly didn't think about who brought in how much. They had enough even without her parents' help, who now gladly visited them. But Dima couldn't calm down, and judging by the fact that he came home late from work, grabbed Saturdays and often half of Sundays, Lina guessed she hadn't convinced her husband. As they say, she let the situation go for a while. And then one day, Dima came home from work and right from the doorstep said to her, "Lina, I've settled on an idea for my own business. What do you think?" "If you've settled on it, then I'm for it," Lina agreed immediately. She knew how important this was for her husband. She listened to his idea, and it seemed quite realistic to her, but she had to talk him out of taking a bank loan for a long time. Her parents, Lina had no doubt, would help here. In the end, she convinced her husband and they went to her parents. They supported him too and immediately gave the necessary amount. For 2 months, Dima was constantly at work, head over heels in the new venture. Lina understood and supported her husband. And then, literally in one day, his business collapsed. Dima became bankrupt. When he told her everything, literally everything that had happened, Lina understood her husband had been simply deceived. He trusted and they deceived him. The most fitting word here is screwed over. They took advantage of his trustfulness, the fact that he didn't keep his deputies on a tight leash, and they literally robbed him. Then Lina was glad that at least Dima hadn't taken a credit. It took her husband a long time to recover from this state of being a deceived and ruined novice businessman. He worked and took side jobs again, lost weight, became haggard, talked less to Lina, only hugged his wife tightly, and seemed to calm down. In the morning, it all started over. Learning what had happened, Lina's parents came to help again. Dad said that this could happen to anyone, even not a novice businessman. Mom added that for 1 beaten, they give 2 unbeaten.
Something else, the father-in-law summed up. "We're with you. More precisely, we're with you all." Dima searched. He was always searching and working to exhaustion. He got so tired that Lina sometimes became scared. This is what working oneself to the bone looks like. His searches, any work just to get paid, the feeling of guilt before Lina that he couldn't give her the life she deserved, it was eating Dima. Now they rarely talked, even less went out. Not to visit, not to the theater, they didn't go. Lina didn't even bring up the conversation about it. She tried to make sure Dima at least got enough sleep and ate. He kept losing weight. His face was always pale. He looked tired and unhealthy, and this worried Lina so much. Her parents noticed too. Mom suggested that Dima undergo an examination, said she would help him do it quickly. Dima categorically refused. He assured that everything was fine and that he really hoped the new business plan would be successful. Lina's father insisted that Dima take money from them for this business plan. He wouldn't even listen. "Take more financial help? I haven't paid back yet," he said. "Get going, then we'll settle up." When they were alone with Lina, Dima for the first time sharply and angrily said to her, That's it, I'm not taking any more money from your parents. I already don't respect myself. I feel like you despise me." From that moment, Dima simply closed off from her. He came home late, just to sleep. He stopped visiting his mom and sisters, and the girls themselves told Lina about it. They asked what had happened to their brother, and they and Mom were sure Dima wasn't healthy. Lina thought so too, but when she asked her husband, he answered with one word: normal. Only Lina felt that something was happening, and it wasn't about his failed business attempts. Here it was something else. The girl couldn't even admit that the reason was banal and disgusting: another woman. If that's the case, then she would simply be crushed. She knows what a huge difference there is between that first young man of hers, whom she doesn't even want to compare to Dima, and her husband, the most decent and honest person she knows, maybe only comparable to her dad. Then what? Lina even allowed that Dima had lost a significant sum in a casino and was now looking for how to pay off the debt. Or, though it scared her to think about it, maybe drugs were involved. They say they relieve stress, but stress has been pursuing Dima for so long. Lina couldn't find an answer to why Dima now tries to go to another room when talking on the phone, and in recent days, such conversations not for outsiders' ears have become constant. But she wasn't going to eavesdrop. She wouldn't humiliate herself like that, and wouldn't humiliate Dima. Lina now constantly thought about the fact that things weren't right between them, and not just because of his business failure. Today, she almost lost a case, fumbling her defense line because she was thinking about her husband, and only at the last moment pulled herself together and won the case. But she immediately went home. She was about to burst into
Tears in front of people. She knew she couldn't do that. Lina opened the door and started changing shoes in the hallway, and then she heard Dima talking on the phone in the room, though at this time he should have been at work. Involuntarily, she listened. Dima, addressing someone as Boris Nikolaevich, was refusing an operation and said that these were his final words. He thanked Boris Nikolaevich for everything he had already done for him, but they both, as Dima said, know that it's useless without money. Useless. There is no money and never will be. Not yet understanding what Dima was talking about, only feeling that trouble was with her husband, Lina entered the room and almost screamed, "Dima, tell the truth!" How terrible and cruel the truth turned out to be. Right after the first failed business attempt, Dima felt a wild headache and went to the hospital without telling Lina or his mom and sisters. He took all the necessary tests and from his attending doctor, Boris Nikolaevich, learned that he had oncology, a brain tumor. He received some supportive treatment, tried to take pills so that Lina wouldn't see. He tried even harder to start his own business anyway. He knew how his illness would end if not operated on urgently, but Dima wanted to establish a business so that after him this venture would remain, which he would equally bequeath to Lina and his family. But everything was against Dima. The next 2 business attempts failed just as much. He was grateful to Lina's parents for everything, but he simply couldn't sit on their necks endlessly. Now it was his last round. This business plan should work, but Dima had no time to wait for profits. If the operation wasn't done in the coming days, that's when Lina cried. He forgot about everything. He wanted her to stop, felt that his heart would burst right now. Dima would never in the world want Lina to feel so bad, but what could he do? He hadn't accomplished anything worthwhile at all, and the best girl in the world loves him. That's why she's crying so bitterly. "Get dressed now," Lina says without stopping crying. He gets dressed. He's ready to fulfill any command or order from Lina, just so she stops crying. They sit in the living room at Lina's parents' house, and Dima tells everything, as Lina told him to, and sees how upset his wife's parents are, and knows why. They thought their daughter's husband was a worthy person who would never hurt her or cause her pain. The father-in-law recovers first. He stands up and starts pacing the living room, then says, "So you married our daughter to make her a widow, was that your plan? You tricked us. You're a coward, Dmitri. You're giving up without a fight?
All you have on your mind is money, but since you didn't earn it right away, you suffered from that? You considered our help humiliating? Leaving Lina a widow, that's bravery? That's pride? And fighting to recover is humiliating? Or is this some higher form of love unknown to us? The mother-in-law continues, "That's enough. Everyone get dressed and into the car. We're going to Boris Nikolaevich. I know him. Get dressed, do you hear?" Lina had never seen her mom
And once again realized how dear Dima was to her parents, and he was silent, just didn't raise his eyes to anyone. Then he said, "No need to go anywhere. It's too late already." "No." Lina quickly approached him and hugged her husband tightly. "I heard the doctor insisting on the operation, so it's not too late yet. Everyone quickly to the car." Her voice shakes them up and they leave the house. Sitting in an embrace on the back seat, Lina says to Dima, "I believe in you and in us. Money isn't important to me, but I want you to develop the business because it's important to you. But if you're gone, that won't happen. I'll be left a widow and your family without support. I'll say it again, and you listen, please. I believe in you, Dima. Do you hear me?" Then there were the hardest 4 months for the whole family, not just for Dima. The operating table, intensive care, as happiness, transfer to a regular ward, and again the operating table, and again intensive care. But Dima believed more than anyone. When he came to consciousness, he believed he would beat the cancer. And looking at him, Lina, her parents, Dima's sisters, whom Lina told everything, taking their word not to say anything to his mom, believed too. For her, they came up with a legend that Dima was on an internship abroad and couldn't always call from there, so Lina acted as the liaison. His mom hardly believed it, but the daughters and daughter-in-law held up well. She had to accept it. And then came the day when Boris Nikolaevich didn't call Lina and her parents to the doctor's room for a talk. He entered the ward with the results of his patient's latest tests and said right from the door, "Well, Dmitri, time to say goodbye. Time to go home." Dima didn't understand what the doctor said, or rather didn't hear because of Lina's happy squeal, exactly a squeal. So from the squeal, Dima guessed what Boris Nikolaevich had said and felt he couldn't hold back the tears, and didn't hide them. The night before discharge, Dima didn't sleep. He arranged a self-trial for himself and didn't want Lina to be his defender. She was already his protector. She was his life. And Lina believed in him, believed more than he did himself. Now it was his turn to build their life with Lina, so that there would always be trust. If Dmitri had said right away that he was ill, how much easier everything would have gone. But he would never again give reason for his beloved wife to cry so bitterly and desperately. Not only in fairy tales do happy endings happen. Dmitri and Lina's entire further life would be happy. Well, not without hitches, but happiness would dominate. Dmitri would have his own business, he would help his mom by sending her for treatment in Germany, and his sisters would study at university. And in chess, he would start winning more often against his father-in-law. And in 3 years, happiness would become different. They would have a little daughter, the spitting image of Lina.